So now we visit the continuing saga of a dead opening, the England Gambit, which nobody can win at except me apparently. And this is definitely working out to be one of the very worst defenses in chess, and yet white continuously goes wrong. Occasionally, I get rolled, very occasionally, weeks apart. Um, in this particular case, black has no space, and he's forced to make moves. And all the following things turn out to be true. And yet it turns out that if you hang in there, good things can happen. So let's start our engine. We won't bother with the fact that the computer hates everything. This is all very standard book stuff. Should give white a nice advantage. First divergent move. Okay. Computer wants bishop to a5. Imagine that. Bishop to a5 covering the c7 square. I really have never played that move. I played this move. So now it says that it's slightly worse. Says I should play king to d8 here. Interesting the computer says that. I played queen takes a2. Okay, so now once again it says I'm slightly worse than I would have been otherwise, except it keeps changing its mind and coming back to a fairly even evaluation. So now it says rook to d1. I've had people play rook to c1 here. That didn't work either. So rook to d1. And now king to d8 is the move. And if you notice, I'm on the verge of being lost. We're almost two down. And it's a very ugly looking position. But this is affording white the ability to go wrong, and white absolutely salivates in this position. They sit there and they look at it, and if they don't know the theory, which hardly anybody should study because it's completely worthless, the number of people who play this has to be close to zero. They look at it and look at it and look at it and say, what do we do? Knight to g5, knight, so e4. The computer likes e4. This check is practically irresistible, and it gets us back in the game. So we interpose, and at this point, you can assume black's practically lost anyway. This is freewheeling chess at this point. And what we really need to concentrate on is the fact that we're trying to get our pieces out and we're trying not to get checkmated. So, likes e4 or c3, Stockfish 8 likes e4. Queen takes is what the opponent played, and now with the precise play, we get near equality. So check, which is correct. And the question is, what does he really have here? He's got that. Okay. Now we win the piece. Okay. So now if you'll notice, we just dropped a rook. So the fact is, though, that we've got three pieces in a rook, and he's got two pieces and two rooks. So he is up, and the pawn count is, if you count them up, they're the same. So we're going to just be down the exchange, but we're going to have more activity. So here he takes the rook, and now he plays rook takes d5, which apparently the computer insists is the correct move because c3 is so weak. So we take back. Now white supposedly has a very slight advantage. Okay. Now this is where a good player who can tactically look at things in some detail quickly is going to prevail. So e3 is what he should have played. Instead he checks. I stupidly moved to f8 instead of e8, but I don't like the idea of a repetition, and I don't want to really give him the hope of a repetition. So I move there. He has the ability, to take advantage of this still, which he doesn't. Now I play knight takes e5, and he's going to get a check in, which he does. Now I move king to g8, and voila, I've castled by hand. So it's very hard for white to find a good move here. The best move for white, obviously, is something like, the queen moves, vacating the f6 square, somewhere where he takes care of business and nothing bad happens. But he has to calculate this, and it's not all that simple. Instead, he moves his knight, and that's a fatal blunder. That's all it took, that knight move. Well, once again, I'm not going to make the right move. So the computer wants me to move queen to a5, which gives me a solid advantage. not quite winning. Um, I decide that I need to anchor my knight in order to move my queen, and that creates equality. It allows him to basically create a left space for his king, prepare e4 all at once with f3, create an even game. So I blundered. Queen to a5 was the right move. Now he plays e4, he blunders back, the game's over. And as you can see, if you can sit here and look at this position, you'll notice why the game's over. The game's over because I have a shot, queen to b3, which renders the c3 pawn dead. And as soon as that c3 pawn falls, the unfortunate part for him is that there's a discovery on his queen. So let's look at it. Check. Okay. He's on queen to f4 is the right move, but then he just gets b1 check. Check. Now it says king to d1 is the proper move, right? No, I'm just going to move there. Now, of course, I have a fork if I want it. So this game's over anyway. Okay. Now we can all see what's going to happen. It wasn't quite as nice as the other one, but he's supposed to take with the queen at this point, but he just resigned. So that's the end of this game, and it's an interesting game from the standpoint of back a few moves. It looked practically weirdly symmetrical. White never got to castle, and his king ended up on f4. So that's kind of wild stuff that happens in this gambit.